Hello everyone, Jason from Truth Behind the Magic here. I wanted to record a quick video here, and by quick I mean it'll probably be 15 to 20 minutes, which is kind of quick by some of the standards of what gets put out on this channel, but wanted to talk about something that's very important. A lot of people are curious about when they are about to do the program, if they know they're accepted, or maybe even before then. Some people may be debating on whether to use the bus system or not, so I wanted to put out a video just talking about what it is, my experience with it, and sort of the benefit of it over having a car and vice versa, that sort of thing. So just a little history. If you've seen any of our other videos, you may know that I did the program 3 times, 2019, 2022, and 2023. I only used the bus system on the first program, and that'll come into this later when I'm kind of discussing having a bus versus, or having a bus. I'm going to take an entire bus down there. Having a car versus using the bus system, that'll come into play. But even though it was 2019, so it was still when they had the old housing complexes, it still translates a lot over into the current time. It translates pretty well. I will talk about some of the improvements and things like that, because I do know a lot of people who use the buses, and obviously I've seen them, so I have a pretty good idea of how it is now and what kind of goes on there. But yeah, just a little background. It originally, well, I say originally, but in terms of the program is a wider thing. It was ran by a company called TransStar. Then it was TransDev, which I believe when I was there in 2019 it was TransDev. I may have them backwards. It may have actually been TransDev first. And now it's ran by Academy Buses, which one of my roommates last year, well, technically, I'm still used to it being 2024, but one of my roommates in 2023, he said, I believe, that they ran the bus system at his university, or at least he was familiar with them in the area, so they're a bigger company than what they were using, I believe. And the buses are definitely newer. If you had done the program right before COVID, you were pretty much getting some hand-me-down type buses. It was pretty rough, some of them. Sometimes they'd just show up in a van on some of the routes. If it was at a weird time, not a lot of people using it, you'd just see a white van show up. I believe I've mentioned that in a video before, but yeah, it's kind of weird when you're expecting a bus and it's literally just a big white van, like what they use for luggage transfers and bell services. But yeah, from what I've heard, the buses are at least in better condition now. Now, that probably will change as the program continues, since it's still pretty new. The quality of drivers, it was pretty iffy back in the day. I think it's still pretty iffy now, and I know that isn't Disney's fault because it's completely a third-party company, but it really just depends on when your program is and what kind of people are working there at the time. But yeah, it's still fundamentally the same as it was beforehand. The bus stops are at the front of each complex. In this case, it's just east and west. Depending on where you live, though, since these complexes are massive compared to the old days, it can be quite a walk. I mean, you're talking 5 minutes, potentially. Maybe even more, depending on which housing you're in, which floor. So you do need to keep that in mind. They used to be pretty close to most of the housing. I mean, if you were in one of the very front buildings, then of course you were closer, but I was in one of the furthest buildings at Vista Way, and it was still just like a 1 or 2 minute walk, but it's different these days. Yeah, it's at the very front. There's a big bus loop at each complex, and kind of just how it works. Of course, it's only for people participating in the program. If you have guests there, they cannot go on it. You show your ID to get on, and now it's just your Flamingo ID. I don't like that they got rid of the photo IDs that they used to have at the old complexes. I know I've talked on here about that a few times before. But I liked that for security reasons. I liked that they had a picture of you. You could prove who you were. You weren't just someone who happened to find one of those IDs out on the street and now you're trying to get on a bus. Now, I know when you're scanning in like a car, when you're scanning into housing, they have a picture of you, the security people that comes up on the screen. But how much they actually care about that probably depends on the person doing it. And like I said, for buses, you could just, unless they have a screen inside the bus, which I don't think you have to scan it when you get on, but you could just find one. Someone could find it at Hollywood Studios or something and then just get on the bus if they knew where it was. But, yeah. And also just another little thing, you can actually still take the buses if you have a car. I'm not sure what reasons you would have for that, but I actually did have a roommate who had used the bus system in 2022, and even though he had a car in 2023, he would still take the buses sometimes to get to work at Hollywood Studios. So if he just wasn't feeling like driving, or maybe had some extra time or something, he would take the bus. Now when it comes to the bus routes, they are very different now than what they used to be, and honestly, you have it good now. I'm sure there is stuff to complain about, but the route should not be one of them, because after looking over this, I don't know if I'd go as far as saying I'm impressed with it, because I don't know just how well it works in practice, but it is 10 times better than the old bus routes, because back in the day, I think it only went up to AH, I want to say, G or H. A, and I'm kind of just remembering this off the top of my head, A and B were Magic Kingdom routes, but they weren't just Magic Kingdom. You went to the Polynesian and the Grand Floridian, then West Clock on the A route, and I believe it also stopped at the TTC. Yeah, it would have been the one that stopped there. And B route went to Wilderness Lodge, then Contemporary, then went to West Clock. So if you were going to Magic Kingdom, it's probably going to take you 30 minutes just to even get to West Clock, maybe more, because it was not direct service on either route. The C route was the Epcot route. It also stopped at a couple resorts, if I remember correctly. So they have definitely streamlined it from that, and I will get to that in just a second. D route was my route. It was Port Orleans, Saratoga Springs, and Old Key West, and would sometimes stop at Epcot to pick people up if it was late at night and very busy. E route, I believe, was the Hollywood Studios, and it went to Hollywood Studios and maybe one resort. It may have actually just gone to Hollywood Studios, though. I honestly cannot remember. That was one of the weird ones. Let's see, what else was there? G route, I believe, it was just resorts, I know that. It was like Pop Century, Art of Animation, maybe, and some other stuff in there. F route, I believe, was Animal Kingdom, and it was pretty much just Animal Kingdom Lodge. It may have gone to the All-Stars, but it was in that area. And then I think H route was like the, auxiliary route that took you to get your groceries, that kind of thing. I think it stopped at a post office if you asked them to. But yeah, that was it. The routes were pretty messy, some of them. You could be waiting quite a while, and they also had to stop at more complexes, obviously, so that automatically is going to put in some wait time. But anyway, getting back to the modern age, I have the schedule up here, and I was looking at it a few minutes ago. You have the A route now, which is like your auxiliary route that takes you to Target, Walmart, Cast Connection. It changes a little bit depending on the day, but that's like your grocery route, basically. B is the Hollywood Studios route now. And looking at this, it also stops at Wide World of Sports, Blizzard Beach, and Coronado Springs. That one probably takes a little while, because those are kind of spread out from each other. I'm kind of surprised that's what they had decided on for that, because Coronado Springs, it is close to Hollywood Studios, but it's technically an Animal Kingdom area resort, just by designation. The sea route, I like this one a lot because it's literally just Epcot, which I wish they had done that with the parks back then. Only having one stop is a pretty big deal, as far as how long you're going to wait, how long it takes to get back home after a long shift, that sort of thing. D route, which used to be the Port Orleans route, is now Animal Kingdom Lodge, Animal Kingdom, and the All-Star Resort, so that's all pretty compact around there. E is now the Magic Kingdom route, and it only stops at West Clock and the TTC, so that's good that they have streamlined that down a lot, because like I said, you'd be waiting probably 30 minutes to get onto one, or just to get to West Clock if you got onto one of the Magic Kingdom buses back in the day. Then you had to take another bus just to get to the backstage area at Magic Kingdom. G route is a resort route, as well as Typhoon Lagoon. It has Caribbean Beach, Pop Century, and Art of Animation. So they're hitting up that Victory Way loop right there. The H route is now the Port Orleans route, and it only stops at both the Port Orleans resorts as well as the Port Orleans cast services, which is literally a part of Riverside. I mean, not literally, it's not inside the resort like some of them are inside the buildings, but it's on the property there. The I route is Disney Springs, Old Key West, and Saratoga. I think that was a good decision to make those their own, because a lot of people do work at Disney Springs, and those other two resorts are right next to it. J route has a lot on it. Riviera, Fantasia Gardens, which it's interesting that Riviera is not a part of the Victory Way, Caribbean Beach, all that loop, because it's right next to Caribbean Beach. You can actually drive there without leaving the gate and having to come back in. I used to do that in Bell Services. But anyway, it has Riviera, Fantasia Gardens, Swan and Dolphin, Yacht and Beach, and Boardwalk. So that one you'll probably be waiting a little while on if you were one of the last stops. Then you have K route, Fort Wilderness Campground. I think it's interesting that they go there first. This is another one I'd be interested to see what route they take up to Fort Wilderness, because there's a couple ways you can go. That's going to take a little while, because that is out of the way, to be quite honest. Wilderness Lodge, Contemporary, Polynesian, and Grand Floridian. So that, if you're at the Grand or the Poly, you're going to be waiting a while on that route. I will be completely honest. I don't know. Let me see what the time is on these. I had another document up here. I'm just curious to see how long it takes them, because that sounds like a doozy right there too. I want to see the J and K routes. Let's see here. Route J. Okay, so from getting on it at West, which by the way they all start at West and then go to East. It used to be with the old complexes they would begin and end at different places, but now it looks like it always starts at West and then goes to East and then leaves, which is good if you're a East person because you don't have to go to the other complex. But for Route J, if you're at the Boardwalk, you're looking for 30 minutes. You're looking at 30 minutes between getting on at East and actually getting to Boardwalk, closer to 40 minutes if you're getting on at West. So yeah, that's quite a trek there. And for the K route, let's see here, Grand Floridian. So if you get on at East and you're at the Grand, you're looking at 40 minutes. So yeah, those are going to be ones to keep in mind. 40 or 50 minutes, depending on which housing you're at, to actually get to work at the Grand. That's pretty long. I mean, I think that's even longer than when I worked at Riverside. I think mine was probably about 30 to get there, because it may have stopped at one of the other... Yeah, we stopped at one of the other housing complexes and then went straight out to French Quarter and then Riverside, so it's probably like 30 to 40 for me. Let's see Route G here. because that was another one that had a lot of stops on it. If I can find this document is massive. It takes a long time to scroll through. Okay, so if you're getting on it east to the last stop at Art of Animation, you're looking at over 40 minutes. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you're on one of those longer routes and you're at the end of it. It is obviously going to take you a longer time to get to work. And something else I wanted to get into was how much time you should give yourself, especially since I was just talking about how long some of these routes are, especially on your first day of training. Depending on where you are, you probably want to give yourself an hour to an hour and a half, leaving that much early. If you're on the latter end of some of these routes, like I said, 40 or 50 minutes, give yourself an hour and a half. If you're at Magic Kingdom, I would just say as a blanket statement, give yourself an hour and a half, because you have to not only get on the bus at Flamingo and get there, but then you have to take a bus from West Clock to the back of Magic Kingdom, and then find your way to your location, which cannot be easy sometimes. But yeah, give yourself plenty of time. And also in the very early morning, the routes are spread out more, the departure time. So if you have like a 6 a.m. start time and you're having to take the bus, keep that in mind. You may have to take one at kind of a weird time. I know Blaze, he used to work at Magic Kingdom, and sometimes he would have to get on a bus at 4 a.m. to get there in time, just because they had it so spread out that another bus wouldn't come for an hour or something along those lines. I don't think it's that bad anymore, but definitely on your first day, give yourself extra time, and you may have to every day. I think I usually left about 45 minutes before a shift when I was working at Port Orleans and taking the buses. But like I said, it didn't take all that long to get over there, and that would actually be cutting it close sometimes, depending on traffic and everything. Yeah, also, we'll have a video coming up soon about the point system and all that, but I just wanted to throw in here, if you're late because of a bus issue, or the bus was not on time, something like that, talk to your leaders about it. They probably will change it for you. Like, they're not going to go against company regulation, obviously, but they might help you out in that case. That has happened to me before, when I had one day when the buses were running like an hour late because it was Black Friday or whatever, and they changed that for me. So I didn't get half a point. Another thing I wanted to talk about is getting to parks the proper way on a day off, because a lot of people are confused about this. I was confused about it when I first started in 2019. There is a right way and a wrong way to get to the parks. 100% do not go through backstage to get into the parks. You will get turned for that, probably on the spot if they find out about it. You'll at least be getting a reprimand. But yeah, don't take the bus to the back of Hollywood Studios and then go through cast services and then on stage and just go to the park like you're there normally. Some of the parks you can take the cast buses there and then walk to the entrance. Hollywood Studios is definitely one of those because it lets off at cast services. Then you just walk around to the right and follow the pathway around. It'll go straight up to the entry area of the park. Animal Kingdom, if it's still picking up at the same spot, the bus lets you off kind of if you're looking out of the front of the park into the right, into the parking lots. There's just like a little shelter way back there that'll let you out, and you can walk to the front from there. It's not that far. Magic Kingdom and Epcot, on the other hand, are very different, because Magic Kingdom, you cannot get in there from the cast buses. You can't go... Now, you could probably get off at the TTC. I don't know exactly what they recommend now, but you may be able to get off at the TTC and just walk in, and then take the monorail or the boat. But just, yeah, you can't take the cast bus to West Clock for that. Just 100%, you cannot. Epcot is similar. Do not take the cast member bus there. There's no way onto stage or to even get to the front of the park from there. It's at a completely different area of the property. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought a lot this video, or should I say my bus of thought. I think I made that joke once before, in a previous video. But yeah, there are a few ways you can get to parks. Like I said, Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom, you can take the cast member buses. For Magic Kingdom, I used to always take it either to the Poly or to the Contemporary. Now you could go to the Grand because they have a walking path from the Grand to Magic Kingdom now. That was not there when I was there. So I would get off at the Poly, get on the monorail, or get off at the Contemporary and walk. It's probably about a half-mile walk, maybe. It's not terrible. And I like doing that. That was my preferred way of getting there, but back then it was just whatever bus got there first, either A or B. Now I believe the Contemporary and Poly and all that are on one loop, so you would just get off at whichever one you get to first and get there. But yeah, company transportation is a great way to get around as someone without a car. Even if you have a car, I still use it to get most places when I'm down there. Disney Springs is a great asset to get to parks or resorts. It's really the hub of getting to resorts because they won't just let you drive in there unless you have a reservation. Now Disney Springs, I don't know exactly where the buses let off there these days. Or wait, yeah, I do. It's across the street, so you probably wouldn't want to take that to Disney Springs as a guest. There might be a better way to get there from a resort and then take a Disney bus. That's probably what I would do. The Skyliner is great too, because you can get to 2 parks from there, multiple resorts, so definitely utilize that. And you will find out pretty quickly where the best places to get back on a bus, back to housing are. Back in the day, it used to be Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios, the Poly was good, Contemporary was good. So you just kind of planned your events around that, saying I'm going to get back to this place and then take the bus from there back to housing. That is one kind of interesting thing about taking the bus system, is that you have to kind of plan your days a little bit different than someone with a car, because if you're going to Epcot, for example, I would actually take a bus from Epcot back to Animal Kingdom, even if they were closed, and get on the cast member bus there, because that was just the best place to do it, as long as the buses were still running. Like I said, you could take it to the Poly, Contemporary. Don't take it to Coronado. That's probably the worst place in the world to get on a cast member bus. I didn't take the bus there, but I worked there and I know where it is, and it's terrible. But yeah, you will learn that as you go, where your preferred places are to get back on the bus at. Now, the bus does have some issues, the bus system. Like I said, drivers can kind of be hit or miss. Pun intended, because sometimes they hit vehicles, sometimes they don't. But no, it's not that bad. Yeah, I've mostly had good experiences with them when I was taking the buses. There's been some bus fires when I was down there. I think pretty much every time there may have been one, but usually nothing major. Sometimes there are accidents. I actually was on the bus. I was the only person on it at like midnight one night, and the driver hit a parked car in the Epcot cast member parking lot, so that was funny. I mean, I shouldn't say funny, but it was kind of ironic in a way, just because it was a Disney cast member bus hitting a cast member vehicle, but that was interesting to say the least. But normally you won't have a problem. I think a lot of the people who complain about the buses are kind of the entitled type people, to be completely honest. Not to say there aren't real complaints, but I just think if these people had seen the program in 2019, they'd be like, we have it made right now, because except for the price of housing, everything is cleaner and more organized than back in the day. But Yeah, when it comes to taking the bus or taking a car down, I know I've said this multiple times in these videos, but I really don't recommend one way or the other. I think if you're on your first program, I would probably just use the buses. I feel like it's a part of the experience. There is nothing like being on a Disney bus, either going to work or coming back after a long shift at like midnight. I'm not kidding when I say you will have like the deepest thoughts you have ever had on those buses. And it gives you peace of mind because you don't have to learn Orlando. You don't have to worry about driving. You just get on the bus. You're able to like decompress after a shift, or just not have to worry about driving in traffic when you're actually going to work. Yeah, I think the peace of mind is a big thing. If you're new to driving in a big city, I probably would just use the buses. Getting groceries is one area where a car is better, but it's not the end of the world. Especially now that there is a grocery store in walking distance of housing. I'm not gonna lie though, it is probably half a mile away, give or take, so it is a bit of a trek. But you can always take buses to, I think they go to 2 or 3 Targets and a Walmart, so I used to just go to Walmart. That was your only option, and you had 20 minutes to sprint through there and get back to get on the next bus. But yeah, something on the side of taking a car, though, is doing things off property, like Universal, getting a haircut, although now there may actually be places that you can get to from the buses to get that done. I used to actually go on Main Street and get it cut at the Main Street barbershop, but that's not always a great option. I don't know how much it costs now either, but you may be able to get somewhere else from the buses now. But yeah, having a car does enable you to do more stuff, 100%. It makes getting groceries a little bit easier. But like I said, if it's your first program, I don't know if I would worry that much about it. If you're insistent on having it, then take it. But it's really not a huge deal if you don't. Like I said, I think it's a part of the program, really. You'll meet people on those buses. You'll have conversations, that sort of thing. Now, if it's your second program or later, in my case, I did 3, so I know there are people out there that do that many or more, but I would say bring a car, because on your first program, I always suggest that you really immerse yourself in Disney. Like, I probably wouldn't even get a Universal Pass unless you're going to be there for 6 months or more. Take advantage of everything Disney has to offer. So a car really isn't as big of a deal, because you're probably going to want to be in the Disney parks, in the Disney resorts, rather than Universal. But if it is your second program, I would say take a car. You've already done your time on the buses. You might want to get a Universal Pass, do some other stuff around Orlando, and you're more familiar with the area and the traffic and all that from riding the buses, so that's when I really would suggest bringing a car. But it really just does depend on your situation and your own thoughts and sentiment on the bus system and having a car and all that, whether or not you end up bringing a car. Obviously, if you don't have one, don't worry about it, just use the buses. I did for 7 months, and it is fine. This video ended up being longer than I expected, but hopefully it was a good overview of not only the bus system, but the routes, some of the issues that it may have, but really what's good about it as well. I know I've said it multiple times, but it really is a part of the program to an extent, so it's kind of a interesting thing to get to experience that firsthand. But yeah, hopefully this will help you in some way and you'll understand the bus system better. And I would say if you take anything from this, I just implore you, like I said, do not take the bus backstage and then go into the parks, because you probably will get termed on the spot for that. So yeah, I would say that's probably one of the big takeaways from this. But anyway, we have some more videos coming out soon, and I will see you next time.